In the fall of 2017, David, a 34-year-old software engineer from Seattle, set out for a solo camping trip in Washington's Olympic National Forest. An experienced outdoorsman, he relished the solitude of the wilderness, equipped with a hunting knife, bear spray, and navigation tools. Seeking isolation, he chose a remote spot in the Quinault area, a 2-hour hike from the nearest trailhead, deep in the forest's 600,000 acres of dense cedars and misty valleys. What he encountered over 2 terrifying nights in that secluded clearing would haunt him, leaving him convinced something inexplicable stalked the shadows. David reached his campsite on a Friday afternoon, a small clearing ringed by towering cedars and thick ferns. The air was cool, scented with pine and moss. He pitched his one-man tent, gathered firewood, and cooked a simple meal over a small fire as dusk settled, casting long shadows. The evening was peaceful, owls hooted, leaves rustled, and the fire's crackle soothed him. He crawled into his sleeping bag around 10 p.m., drifting off to the forest's gentle hum. At 2 a.m., David woke with a start. Heavy footsteps crunched outside his tent, circling the clearing slowly. The steps were deliberate, not the erratic scuffle of an animal, but rhythmic, almost human. His heart raced. Bears and cougars roamed the area, but these didn't sound right. Miles from any trail, another person seemed unlikely. Gripping his knife, he lay still, hoping it would pass. The footsteps circled for 10 minutes, pausing briefly, then stopped. The silence felt heavier than the sounds. David stayed awake, ears straining, but heard nothing more. Exhaustion eventually pulled him back to sleep. At dawn, he searched the campsite. The soft, rain-damp ground should have held tracks, but he found none. No paw prints, no hoof marks, no disturbed leaves. The forest was eerily quiet, birds silent. David chalked it up to his imagination, amplified by isolation. Determined to enjoy his trip, he stayed, spending the day hiking and fishing in a nearby stream. The sunlight eased his nerves, and by evening, he felt ready to settle in again. That night, David built a larger fire to deter wildlife. He sat by the flames, sipping coffee, as nocturnal sounds filled the air. Around midnight, the footsteps returned, closer, the crunch of twigs unmistakable. He stood, shining his flashlight into the trees, but saw only shadows. "Who's there?" he shouted. No answer. The steps paused, then continued, circling just beyond the firelight. Then came whispers, faint, unintelligible, like a muffled conversation. The human-like cadence chilled him. He yelled again, "I'm armed. Leave." The whispers stopped, but the footsteps circled for nearly an hour before fading. David sat by the fire until dawn, clutching his knife, too terrified to sleep. At first light, he searched again. 20 feet from his tent, under a fern, he found a fresh cigarette butt, still smelling of smoke. David didn't smoke, and no one was around for miles. The butt was pristine, untouched by dew, bearing an odd logo he didn't recognize. The soft earth held no tracks. Panic surged. He packed up and hiked out, glancing back, convinced he was watched. The forest felt alive with menace. At the ranger station, David reported the incident. The rangers were skeptical, suggesting a prank or fatigue. A search found no tracks, no campsite, no cigarette butt. David insisted the butt was real, but without evidence, they could do little. He never camped alone again and shared his story online. Some speculated a squatter, but the lack of tracks and whispers didn't fit. Others cited the forest's history, missing hikers, strange lights, and indigenous tales of spirits guarding the Quinault area. David's experience is chilling for its ambiguity. An experienced camper, he wasn't prone to panic, yet the footsteps, whispers, and cigarette butt defied explanation. The Olympic National Forest is known for unexplained incidents, and David's vivid account suggests he wasn't alone. Whether human, paranormal, or something else, his encounter warns that the wilderness holds secrets we may never grasp. In the summer of 2019, for friends, Emma, Lucas, Sarah, and Jake, all in their mid-20s, set out for a group camping trip in Oregon's Deschutes National Forest. Avid campers, they loved the forest's lakes and volcanic vistas. Wanting a quiet escape from Portland, they picked a remote spot by Crane Prairie Reservoir, a 3-hour hike from the nearest parking lot. Their weekend of fun turned terrifying, leaving them haunted by an encounter they couldn't explain. The group arrived Friday afternoon, trekking through pines to a clearing by the reservoir. The spot was perfect: calm water, distant peaks, and no one else around. They pitched 2 tents, built a fire, and spent the evening roasting marshmallows and laughing under the stars. Crickets chirped, and an owl hooted nearby. They split into pairs, Emma and Lucas, Sarah and Jake, and went to bed around midnight, feeling safe. At 3 a.m., Emma woke to rhythmic tapping, like fingers on wood, coming from the woods. She nudged Lucas, who thought it was branches in the wind. The tapping grew louder, closer. Sarah and Jake woke, too. Jake shone a flashlight into the trees, seeing nothing. An animal, he said, but the tapping felt deliberate. It stopped after a sharp crack, like a breaking branch. Silence followed, heavy and unnerving. They whispered reassurances, but barely slept. Morning came, and they searched the area. The rocky ground held no tracks, and no branches were broken. The forest was quiet, birds silent. Sarah dismissed it, but Lucas seemed uneasy. They spent the day fishing and swimming, trying to shake the tension. By afternoon, they were joking again, blaming the scare on ghost stories. That evening, they cooked dinner and played cards by lantern light. Around 11 p.m., as they doused the fire, the tapping returned, louder, from multiple directions, like it was closing in. Flashlights revealed nothing. "Hello," Jake shouted. No reply. Rustling joined the tapping, like footsteps circling the camp. Emma grabbed a hatchet, trembling. They banged pots and yelled to scare it off. The tapping stopped, but the rustling continued. Sarah spotted something glinting in the trees. Jake led the group to investigate, finding a rusted pocket watch hanging from a branch 30 feet away. It wasn't there earlier. The watch was old, cracked, but ticking faintly. No one recognized it. Emma noted no one could have hung it unnoticed. They'd been in the clearing all night. Fear surged. They debated hiking out, but feared the dark. Instead, they rebuilt the fire, keeping it roaring, and took turns on watch. At 2 a.m., the tapping resumed with a low, guttural hum, like a distant chant, echoing around them. It lasted hours, stopping at dawn. They checked the tree. The watch was gone. No cord or trace left. No footprints marked the ground. Terrified, they packed and hiked out, feeling watched. At the ranger station, they reported it, but a search found no evidence. Rangers suggested natural sounds, but couldn't explain the watch. The friends stopped camping together. They shared their story online, sparking theories of pranksters or disturbed ritual sites. Deschutes has a history of odd reports, missing hikers, strange noises, and tales of spirits tied to its volcanic land. The watch's appearance and vanishing defied reason. Whether human or otherworldly, something had targeted them, leaving a lingering dread of the wild. In the summer of 2018, for friends from Flagstaff, Arizona, Jake, Sarah, Daniel, and Mia decided to camp in a remote corner of the Navajo Nation, near the Four Corners. They'd grown up hearing whispers of skinwalkers, or Yinald-Lushii, malevolent Navajo shapeshifters who could mimic voices, take animal or human forms, and lure victims to their doom. The group, all in their mid-20s and avid outdoors enthusiasts, laughed off the tales as campfire fodder, eager for a weekend of stargazing and solitude in the wild. They chose a secluded canyon, far from any paved road, where jagged red rock formations loomed over sparse juniper trees and dry washes. The first day was perfect. They hiked, set up tents, and swapped stories under a blazing sunset. That night, they slept soundly, the only sounds the crackle of their fire and distant coyote yips. The second night, around midnight, everything changed. Jake was stoking the dying fire when he heard Sarah's voice, soft and unmistakable, calling from the darkness beyond the camp. "Jake, come here, quick," it pleaded, her familiar drawl tinged with urgency. But Sarah was asleep, curled up in her sleeping bag just feet away. Jake's stomach dropped. He shook Sarah awake, whispering, "Did you call me?" Her eyes widened as she shook her head, confirming she hadn't spoken. The group huddled together, flashlights in hand, trying to rationalize it. Maybe the wind, or a prankster. But then the voice came again, closer, from a different direction. "Jake, please, I need you." It was Sarah's voice, but now desperate, almost tearful. Sarah clutched Jake's arm, whispering, "That's not me." They swept their lights across the canyon, but the beams revealed only rocks and shadows. Then they heard footsteps, slow, deliberate, circling just beyond the firelight. The steps sounded human, but the rhythm was wrong, too measured, unnatural. Daniel, who was Navajo, went pale. He whispered that skinwalkers mimic loved ones to lure people into the dark. "Stay in the circle," he urged. "Keep the fire high, and don't answer it." They piled on more wood, flames casting eerie shadows on the canyon walls. The calls grew relentless. The voice shifted, now mimicking Jake's mom, then Daniel's younger brother, even Mia's childhood friend who died years ago. Each was chillingly accurate, tugging at their hearts. "Why won't you help me?" the voices begged, overlapping in a haunting chorus. Then came howls, deep, guttural, not like any coyote or wolf, echoing through the canyon like a human scream warped by something unearthly. Daniel muttered Navajo prayers, his hands shaking, as the group gripped camping knives and a hatchet, eyes darting to the darkness. Around 3 a.m., the voices stopped, and the footsteps fell silent. But then they saw it, two glowing yellow eyes on a ridge above, too high for any animal, unblinking and fixed on them. A silhouette emerged, vaguely human but wrong, its limbs too long, bending unnaturally as it moved along the ridge. Mia stifled a scream. Jake felt his blood run cold. The figure vanished as quickly as it appeared. The group sat frozen, waiting for dawn. At first light, they packed in a frenzy and hiked out, refusing to look back. When they reached their truck, they found deep claw marks gouged into the hood, marks that hadn't been there 2 days earlier. Back in Flagstaff, they shared their story with a Navajo elder, who listened gravely. He said it was a skinwalker, likely drawn to them for camping on sacred, forbidden land. He warned them never to return, explaining that skinwalkers mark their prey and rarely forget. The group never camped again. Jake still wakes some nights, heart racing, swearing he hears Sarah's voice calling from outside, even though she's asleep beside him. This account draws from stories shared in Navajo Nation forums and local interviews, where skinwalker encounters remain vivid in oral tradition. Skeptics blame imagination or wildlife, but believers insist these entities are real, stalking the vast, lonely deserts. The canyon remains unmarked on maps, a place locals avoid after dusk.